The following program paid for by Lifespan Wealth Management. Providing financial advice since 1993. It's time for Your Money with Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, and Jonathan Eisner. And now from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
Good morning, Middle Georgia, and thanks for tuning in to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. So if you're looking for an investment advisor, call our office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation.
Lifespan Wealth Management has offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience and has been serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. You can learn more about our services by visiting our website at retirerelax.com. And while you're on our site, go to the special reports section where you'll find several reports that are available to you for free. You can also sign up to receive our digital feeds, which are short videos providing great information relevant to retirement, investing, and matters that affect your money.
We also offer seminars to the community at no cost. So if you're in need of a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, give us a call, and together we can decide what topics you would like us to present to your group. Again, our contact number is 478-922-8100.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, all of our listeners, and thank you for listening. All right, a couple quick updates on Social Security and cost of living. So the Social Security cost of living increase will go up by 2.8% in 2026, which translates to an average increase of more than $56 a month for retirees. The benefit increase for nearly 71 million Social Security recipients will go into effect beginning in January, and increased payments to nearly 7.5 million people receiving supplemental security income will begin on December 31st. Recipients received a 2.5% cost of living boost in 2025, 3.2% in 2024, and a historically large 8.7% increase. I'm sure everybody remembers that one in 2023 after 2022 brought on 40-year high inflation. Also this week, the September CPI report came in cooler than expected, with headline CPI rising 3% on an annual basis, which was the highest level since May, but softer than forecasted. Month over month, prices rose 0.3%, a slight cooling from August reading and also below expectations. The report was the first major economic release since the shutdown began, giving investors a long-awaited pulse check on the economy. Markets are now pricing in a 99% chance of a quarter-point cut next week and about a 96% chance of another rate cut in December.
All right. In the markets, we received an email from a company that we follow for our wealth management, and they had three scenarios of what could be coming regarding the markets, from a growth boom to a growth bust, and it muddled through and in between those two scenarios. There's just a lot going on, and we're watching it on a daily basis.
Yep. So Merck on Monday announced the groundbreaking of its new Virginia pharmaceutical manufacturing facility, a cornerstone of the company's $70 billion U.S. investment strategy. The 400,000 square foot site in Elkton, Virginia, is expected to create 500 full-time positions once operational and generate roughly 8,000 construction jobs during the development. As one of the largest pharmaceutical investment of President Trump's second term, Merck's push comes as the administration is prioritizing making pharmaceuticals domestically and reducing dependence on foreign drug production.
Yep, that's a good start. All right, China responds to the U.S.-Australia rare earth deal. The agreement between the U.S. and Australia to partner on developing supplies of rare earth and critical minerals amid trade tensions with China, who is the world's leading supplier, prompted a response from the Chinese government. The U.S.-Australia deal was signed by President Trump and the Australian Prime Minister on Monday after China announced export controls on rare earth earlier this month. In 2024, the U.S. Geological Survey found that China mines produced about 270,000 tons of rare earth and minerals, and the country has more than 44 million tons of reserves. By comparison, the U.S. produced 45,000 tons of rare earth minerals and had 1.9 million tons in reserves, while Australia produced 13,000 tons and had 5.7 million tons of reserves. So yes, China is the 800-pound gorilla in this space. The U.S. and Australia each committed to invest $1 billion over the next 6 months in mining and processing projects. So as well as to set price floors for the critical minerals. They also agreed to cut permitting processes for mines, processing facilities, and related operations to boost production of rare earth and critical minerals.
I should have looked up the jobs that creates, the kind of jobs that will. That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
In China, I'm sure it creates a ton because they're so far ahead of everybody else. But
Right.
maybe everybody else can hopefully catch up some. All right. A couple in their 80s wants to do Roth conversions. Should they? A couple, let's call them Glenn and Harriet, have been a team since they were married 53 years ago. Now in their early 80s, they're trying to plan for the uncertainties ahead, such as what will happen financially should one of them become incapacitated, or the inevitable that one of them should die. Among other things, they want to be sure the surviving spouse is prepared to handle any remaining financial tasks on their own. They also wonder if they should begin converting their 3 traditional individual retirement accounts, worth about $2.6 million, to Roth IRAs to pay taxes sooner rather than later, when a surviving spouse would have to file solo with a potentially higher rate. The couple's done a lot of estate planning already. Their home, worth about $2 million, is paid off and in a living trust for their 2 sons and their families. They have funded 529 college savings accounts for 2 grandkids, ages 13 and 10, worth about $288,000. They also have more than $300,000 in trust accounts for emergencies, which could go toward paying taxes on Roth conversions.
But the couples worry that since they have been so hands-on with managing their assets, Harriet may be less prepared to take over should Glenn become unable. To that end, they are thinking about turning over their taxes to a professional to ensure continuity, and that the couple plans to communicate more closely with their sons about the family finances to ensure that support is available should one of them have to manage it alone. The couple is also thinking about remodeling their home to allow for aging in place, or the potential move to a continuing care community.
So if they decide to move, Glenn and Harriet likely would want to sell their home rather than leave it in the trust. They're wondering if there's anything to be done about capital gains on the home, which they purchased in 1989 for about $600,000.
Well, they will pay taxes on the gains over $1.1 million. They estimate that their home is worth $2 million, and if they sold it for that, they would pay taxes on the $900,000 in gains. Since they've lived in the home for the last 2 of the 5 years, they're eligible to exclude up to $250,000 each from the profit on the sale of that home. So that extra that's an extra $500,000 to the purchase price, which would get you to the $1.1 million mark. But they have lived in that home since 1989, and I imagine that in that time they have, like most of us, made improvements to the home, and all of those improvements over the years can add up, and in the end, it can make a big difference in the amount of taxes that they would owe Uncle Sam.
So side note, if you have a house and you make improvements, put those improvements in a folder.
Absolutely.
You have to keep up with that so that when you sell, you can use that to deduct it.
Yeah, because if the IRS comes back to you and they said, show me, prove
Yes.
it, then you've got the proof.
Yep. So Roth conversions can make sense for people who don't want their children to inherit tax issues, but a multi-million-dollar Roth conversion is a multi-year undertaking. That's partly because whatever amount you convert is added to your taxable income for that year, and a miscalculation could put you into a higher tax bracket and even cause your Medicare premiums to go up, which absolutely will happen. There's the adjusted gross income is $241,000, including required minimum distributions from their traditional IRAs, Social Security, a pension, and some capital gains on investment. That puts Glenn and Harriet in the 24% tax bracket, which for married couples filing jointly topped out at $383,000 in 2024. Their CPA estimates they could have converted about $140,000 in pre-tax income to a Roth without being pushed into a higher tax bracket.
Tax brackets, however, are much less generous for single filers, so if one of them were to die, the surviving spouse could easily end up paying a higher tax rate, especially if they're trying to convert too high an amount of pre-tax retirement funds. Regardless of whether they leave the money in IRAs or convert them to Roths, their sons will have 10 years to withdraw the funds after they inherit them, and they will have to pay taxes on the distributions at their own rate.
Including their sons in the finances, while everyone is still able to express their wishes, is pivotal. Let's discuss this. One of the pieces missing from this plan is the need for long-term care at home or in a facility. I currently have clients who are paying between $5,000 and $10,000 a month for care, and the average length of needing long-term care is 3 years, which Doesn't make any sense because some people have it for 15 years, some people have it for 1. The total cost of $10,000 per month care for 3 years is $360,000. You can burn through your savings pretty fast. On the flip side, you can deduct the cost of care on your tax return, which helps reduce the tax you owe by using IRA money to pay for care. To qualify for this tax benefit, a licensed healthcare professional must deem the long-term care service medically necessary. You can claim the deduction for yourself, your spouse, or dependent, provided that a licensed healthcare practitioner indicates the individual meets one of the following criteria. The care must be for a chronically ill person, meaning they are unable to perform at least 2 activities of daily living without substantial assistance from another person for at least 90 days due to loss of some functional capacity. Some examples include eating, bathing, or dressing. Also, the condition must be certified within the last year. Someone with a severe cognitive impairment, meaning they require substantial supervision to be protected from threats to their health and safety, can also be certified. So I'm concerned about them converting all the IRA money to a Roth as if one needs care that could avoid paying these taxes.
Yep, right. And here's another piece of this puzzle. Americans are unprepared for longer lifespans and extended retirement years. The population of adults 65 and older is expected to rise from 58 million to 82 million by 2050. Adults are living longer, but here's the caveat. Their retirement funds aren't keeping up with the longer lifespans. According to John Hancock Longevity Preparedness Index, they are falling short in critical areas such as care, housing, finance, and health. The biggest blind spot identified in this study was that few American adults know who will care for them as they age or how long they'll afford that care, and many haven't had conversations with family or loved ones about it.
That's right. So we bought long-term care policies years ago, but I knew a lot about it as I wrote a lot of those insurance policies. So here's your excuse for bringing this topic up next time you are with your family. And if they are still working, they may be able to convince their human resources department to offer long-term care policies through the business at a discount. And today there are hybrid plans that can combine this sort of insurance with another type of policy in case you ever need long-term care coverage.
Yep, and we've talked about it a few times on the show previously, but if you have any insurance, life insurance policies and or annuities, especially ones that are several years old, there may be more manageable options for getting long-term care insurance. As Sherry mentioned, when you get a hybrid policy, you have a policy with a primary benefit, like a death benefit, which also has long-term care benefits as a secondary benefit. This is potentially a much more affordable way to get the long-term care coverage than a traditional standalone long-term care policy would be. But also, if the policy is not used for long-term care, then it is still a life insurance policy or an annuity at the end of the day that will still pay out that primary benefit.
Yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Yep. Some of the key benefits of a hybrid annuity long-term care policy combine the benefits of an annuity with long-term care coverage, which provides financial security and health care support.
Many of the policies typically provide guaranteed returns of around 4 to 5% annually, which helps offset the cost of long-term care. And there are often tax advantages that come with these policies, which provide additional financial relief as well.
Jonathan, you came from a firm that dealt with these products probably on a daily basis. It is my understanding that the hybrid policies typically have a fixed premium that cannot be increased, and that alone provides a peace of mind to policy holders.
It does. It does. You can structure them that way. You can structure fixed premiums. They can also be structured to have flexible premiums, or in some cases, no premium at all after an initial premium is paid. There are a lot of different ways to skin that cat for sure. There's a degree of flexibility as to how it's structured, very much case by case.
So if you're interested in this, give us a call, 478-922-8100, and ask for Jonathan.
Billionaire boss of South Korean construction giant is encouraging his workers to have children with a $75,000 bonus.
Nice.
South Korea's corporate giants are stepping in to help reverse the trend that could see the country's workforce halve within 50 years. So how much is putting your career aside to have a baby worth? A $75,000 bonus at the South Korean construction company Boyoung Group. The Seoul-based company is handing out 100 million Korean won, $75,000 US, each time an employee has a baby to help reverse the country's declining birth rate. And it's even backdating payments to those who started a family before the policy came into place. The company's founders said that if the current state of low birth rates persists, we will face a national existential crisis such as a workforce decline and a lack of defense manpower necessary for national security.
And as well as awarding a total of $5.25 million US dollars to employees who collectively had 70 babies since 2021, the construction giant's drastic measures include potentially footing the bill for larger families' rent. If land is provided by the government for employees with 3 or more children, we'll let them choose between childbirth incentives equivalent for 3 newborns or a public housing like rental home with no tenant tax burden or maintenance responsibilities. What's more, the no strings attached benefit will be available to both male and female employees at the 2,500 strong workforce. In addition to the childbirth incentive, Boyoung's group is reportedly already trying to ease the financial burden on parents by helping out with college tuition for employees' children, medical expenses for direct family members, and child allowances.
On top of that, the company is promoting a new tax deduction system to waive corporate and income tax so the employees can receive full benefits of the parenting incentives and more companies can follow suit. South Korea's government has already subsidized housing for newlyweds, discounted postpartum care for new mothers, and even introduced a baby payment of $2,250 for each newborn, but it's not enough to convince the country's severely declining population to have kids. The country currently has the world's lowest fertility rate, with the number of babies expected per South Korean woman dropping to 0.78 in 2022. That figure is expected to fall further in 2025. In comparison, experts say that a rate of 2.1 is needed for a country to maintain a stable population without migration.
Now South Korea's corporate giants are being forced to step in and reverse the trend that could see the country's workforce halve within 50 years. Samsung Electronics, LG Electronics, and Hyundai have introduced various kid-friendly perks, including on-site daycare facilities, fertility benefits, and even 2 years of parental leave.
So, Corey, would getting all these benefits and free money make you want to have a baby?
Well, Madam President, I think it really depends on if you have any interest in adding some incentives like these. I mean,
$75,000 bonus.
that would be
Sherry, you opened up this Pandora box. I mean,
Shoot, Katie and I will have another baby if you guys want to. I mean, we have 4. What's 5? I mean,
you're right.
What's really the difference?
75,000. I mean, Sherry.
Hey, and they did it retroactively going
Yeah.
back a few years. You know, 75,000 times 4.
$300,000 payday for Jonathan right now.
Right. Corey, let's do that.
I
Let's
might have
kids.
to take another vacation.
There you go. Can a credit bureau share my personal information, including my social security number? A long history of data breaches and other hacks means that for most of us, our personal information is out there on the internet. Still, it's disconcerting and sometimes unnerving when a business knows your social security number without you ever providing it to them. Sometimes you can trace the origin, and sometimes you can't. Either way, it's easy to feel slighted, even if it's a credit union that provided your personal information to that business. Is it legal for Equifax or another credit bureau to do that? The law does allow for credit bureaus, including Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, to make money via your personal information. That's their entire business model. So how would this work in practice? Equifax could approach Dish Network with a juicy pitch. Hey, how would you like some quality leads of people with outstanding credit records? And Dish is like, wow, so this is going to cost us X dollars per person who signs up? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll make that money back pretty quickly.
Yeah, so freezing your credit stops credit bureaus such as Equifax from profiting from your personal information. And putting a credit freeze in place will also help protect you from many of the worst forms of identity theft. And it's very easy to do. So if you don't really know how to do it, just go out and Google it. It's really quite simple. So let's talk about the do's and don'ts when you get an inheritance. So if you receive a sudden windfall, take time to review your financial picture before you start spending, please. Okay, this story starts off with a lady who wrote in to tell about her husband's inheritance and how he wanted to spend it, and the concerns that it brought about for her and their relationship. She says, 7 years ago, my husband's grandmother passed away and left him an inheritance of $20,000. Her husband quickly decided he wanted to buy a boat with that money. And she says she remembers him saying, whoa, don't you think we should talk about this first? And I can think of so many things that we can do with that $20,000. And it quickly turned into a philosophical discussion about how they should spend the money. And he felt that because that money came unexpectedly and it was unearned, it was play money. And I've heard this so many times from people that it's just play money. I didn't earn it, therefore I can do anything I want to do with it. So she felt like the money could give them an opportunity to pay off debt or contribute to their daughter's education savings account ultimately. And even though it was a split decision, he bought the pontoon boat.
You may have heard the term the Great Wealth Transfer. Between now and 2045, the baby boomer generation is expected to transfer more than $53 trillion to their heirs. If you receive an inheritance, it's important to create a thoughtful plan on how you will handle it. And if you have a partner, that includes having a conversation with them to align your priorities. When you are in a partnership, how you manage money, including an inheritance, should be a team decision. In most cases, it tends to lead to a better outcome when you talk things through together. Here are the do's and don'ts to consider for an inheritance.
All right, the first one is don't be impulsive. If you are fortunate enough to receive an inheritance, buy a nice bottle of champagne, make a toast in honor of your benefactor, then hit the pause button before you start spending it. This is the time to reflect. While you are likely to be grieving, don't react emotionally with the money. Consider setting a time period before you start spending, like 3 months, to give time to review your financial picture, prioritize your goals, and speak with a financial professional. You could hold the inheritance in a high-yield savings account as you take a few months to develop your plan of action, and do a review of your current state of your financial picture. Do you have a non-deductible, high-interest debt like a credit card? If yes, think about putting credit card debt at the top of your list to pay off first. And do you have an emergency fund to cover at least 3 months of essential living expenses? If not, add that to your list. The actions you take to ensure your current financial situation is in good order can help set you up for future financial success.
Okay, so again, this is the do's and don'ts of receiving an inheritance, and Randy just went over a don't and a do. Here's a do. Do reassess your intermediate and long-term goals. Depending on the size of the inheritance, using the funds strategically could help create the financial future you always imagined. Do you want to use a portion of it to help save for a child's education, or save for a down payment on a house, or pay down student loan debt? Are you contributing to your company's retirement plan at a minimum up to their match? Or will this inheritance allow you to contribute the maximum amount allowed to tax-advantaged retirement accounts like an IRA or a 401k? Add these items to your list. Do talk to professionals. The larger the amount of money you inherit, the more helpful it can be to talk to a professional. Even if you consider yourself financially savvy, it can be useful to have a second set of eyes on your finances. They can review your overall financial picture, help you think holistically, and suggest the right investing vehicles. Talk with a tax advisor who can also help you understand the implications of any income or inheritance tax you may be subject to.
I'm amazed at the number of people who have never heard of inheriting property and the step-up in cost basis to the date of death value. When my dad passed, I inherited a fifth of my dad's lake house with my 4 siblings. None of us ever planned to use it, so we moved that property into our names, put it on the market. It sold very fast, and we each received $100,000 tax-free. I told my siblings about it being tax-free, and they didn't believe me until they talked to their CPA. The same is true for inheriting non-IRA investment accounts, which is just a majorly good deal.
Another do is to consider using a portion to honor your late relative. The passing of a loved one is an emotional time, and doing something special to honor that person's life can help in the grieving process. Explore ways you can use a portion of the inheritance to honor your benefactor, whether it's an experience like a family vacation or a piece of jewelry that signifies their life, or in this guy's case, a boat.
All right. I have a longtime friend who's married. Unfortunately, he and his wife are not on the same page when it comes to finances. Several years ago, her mother passed away and left the home to her and her brother. And when they sold the home, they each received about $20,000. And they had a lot of debt and no savings. And this would have been a great opportunity to get the debt paid down and set up an emergency savings account like we previously talked about. They could have paid off 100% of their debt. Instead, she decided to take all of her friends on a cruise and pay for the entire trip. There was nothing to show for it in the end that could have helped their family move to the next level, help reduce the stress from all the bills they had, and living paycheck to paycheck. the story that we started out with in this segment resonated with me because it was almost exactly like my friend's story. It's hard to watch this sort of thing take place from the sidelines. The stresses of being behind on bills, having vehicles that are old and falling apart, and no money to repair them, but spending money on all the wrong things all the time is just a terrible thing. Today, my friends are in the middle of a divorce, and I guarantee you that the linchpin of the entire thing is because of the money or the constant clawing at each other because of the bills, and there's no money left over at the end of every pay period. Now they're fighting over who gets the bills, which bills in the divorce.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's hard to watch.
This is why we harp on budgets and trying to get people to really take a hard look at where they spend their money and why they spend their money the way that they do. We want the best for our clients and prospective clients, and we hope that you take the time to sit down and really examine your spending habits, especially if you do not have an emergency saving account set up. So, hey, at least the intro story, they bought a boat that they at least got to keep and enjoy. Your friend paid for a cruise that was over in 4 days, and
that's right.
That money just poof.
That's right.
Vanished.
You know, it's not just we want to see our prospective clients and our clients be in a good position. We want everyone to be in a good position.
For sure.
You know, and it's terrible to watch when people are not. It's
and they won't listen.
And they just won't listen. It's about they want to spend every dime they get, and they don't think about the future. So
very tough.
You've been listening to Your Money, brought to you by Lifespan Wealth Management, proudly serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. Our mission? Helping folks just like you plan for a secure and stress-free retirement. Need a trusted financial advisor? Call us today at 478-922-8100 and schedule your complimentary consultation at our Macon or Warner Robins office. Want to learn more? Visit us anytime at retirerelax.com. Because when you plan smart, you can retire and relax. And here's something extra. We offer free educational seminars for the community. If your group needs a guest speaker, give us a call and let's make it happen. That's 478-922-8100. Now, let's get back to the show.
Okay, here is the catch with free, quote, free AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile phone offers. You really need to do your homework before taking anything that is, quote, free. In this case, the free deals usually come in the form of credits or bill rebates over many months, usually 24 to 36 months to be exact. If you cancel early, move to a different plan, or switch carriers, you lose those credits. And the remaining phone balance may become due immediately. I have definitely fallen victim to this trap before.
Gee.
Not recently, I learned from it. But you must use or switch to a qualifying unlimited plan. To qualify, you often must be on a specific unlimited plan, sometimes a more expensive tier, or upgrade to one. You'll usually have to trade in a smartphone, sometimes of a certain age or model. The traded device may have to meet condition requirements, like it has to power on, can't have major damage, etc. Upfront costs and fees still apply. Even with the promotion, you'll still pay taxes, activation or connection fees, and sometimes down payments. The deal may also be tied to well-qualified status, in other words, good credit, for example, and only starts after a few billing cycles. The contract is hidden. Though carriers often don't call it a contract, these offers function like one. You're locked into staying with them and their service plan for a full term of the credit period. Otherwise, the remaining phone cost becomes your responsibility. So always read the fine print.
Absolutely.
And ask a lot of questions.
Yes.
Yep. Good advice. So this is a great program. It's Pro Bono Month, and IRS is seeking volunteers to help prepare free tax returns. The IRS and its community partners are looking for volunteers to support the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance, VITA, and tax counseling for the elderly program. So what is VITA? VITA stands for the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. The IRS-run initiative began as a part of a broader effort to promote taxpayer education. Today, VITA offers free tax filing help to underserved communities. While the eligibility requirements at VITA can differ, sites usually serve people earning roughly $67,000 or less, individuals with disabilities, and limited English-speaking taxpayers. VITA's sister program, TCE, is focused on taxpayers aged 60 and older. Sometimes TCE and VITA are simply referred to as VITA.
The IRS launched the VITA program after the Tax Reform Act of 1969 was passed. In the most recent tax season, over 72,000 volunteers worked at more than 9,000 VITA sites nationwide to prepare and file over 2.7 million federal tax returns. Not all types of returns can be prepared at VITA sites. Schedule C returns, meaning Forms 1040 for taxpayers who own their businesses, may be out of the scope of some sites, especially if the business has a significant net loss of over $10,000 usually, or involves depreciation.
Right. And returns with a Schedule D, which is for capital gains or losses, may also be out of scope if they are particularly complex, as well as most Schedule E for rental income and Schedule F, which is for farm income returns. VITA sites usually do not prepare corporate partnerships or fiduciary income tax returns like Forms 1120, 1120S, 1041s, or 1065s. However, they can prepare most other Form 1040 returns, including those with itemized deductions and self-employment tax. Taxpayers who need to report simple interest, dividends, and capital gains or losses can also have their returns prepared at these sites. Who pays for VITA? You do, of sorts. The IRS administers these programs, and the agency relies on funding from Congress. Don't think of the VITA sites as permanent fixtures. These sites change depending on the funding and the volunteers. For 2025, the IRS awarded $53 million in grants to 56 VITA TCE organizations that provide free federal tax preparation. In 2023, grant recipients from programs assisted taxpayers in filing more than 2.1 million tax returns.
Who staffs VITA? Were you about to say something else?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So who staffs VITA? Volunteers. Not all volunteers prepare taxes. Additional roles include greeters, screeners, site coordinators, IT troubleshooters, and quality reviewers. Volunteers may also offer free language interpreter services. The IRS offers free specialized training to volunteers. Depending on the types of tax returns you will need help preparing, you will receive different levels of training. You must also pass an exam to receive basic or advanced certification. So if you're looking for something to do and enjoy helping people, this could be your next gig.
So there's a big site here in Warner Robins, and it's over in the senior center is where they usually focus themselves. They have a whole place there.
In the old Houston Mall? Is that the senior center?
No. If just over off Watson Boulevard, over by across from the credit union.
Okay.
It's right over there. I mean, they literally fill that place up with people, and the people are so nice. Like, I was over there for some reason, I can't remember one year, and it was a lot of people helping a lot of people, and it was extremely positive.
Cool.
And a good deal.
AI. What would a weekly show be without mention of AI?
Yep.
Right.
It wouldn't feel the same.
Or hackers.
Right. AI destroys the old learning curve. Wright's Law is being rewritten, and leaders who don't adapt to this new world will be replaced. Scale drives efficiency. For almost a century, industrial planners have relied on this simple principle. In 1936, aeronautical engineer Theodore Wright discovered that costs fell in a predictable way every time production doubled. The more you produce, the cheaper things become, in part because the learning cost per unit declines. Artificial intelligence has accelerated this principle. It is rewriting Wright's Law, which assumes that experience follows production. You make mistakes, learn from them, and improve. AI makes it possible for experience to come before production. Simulation can happen millions of times before a single box is shipped. Experience scales almost instantly at no real cost. The learning curve doesn't only steepen, it collapses. That means knowledge that once took decades of human trial and error can emerge in weeks, days, even hours. In a supply chain, this is a profound shift. Decisions about capacity, warehouse space, routing, technology adoption, and risk management can be modeled, tested, and optimized in advance. The costs of imprecise planning shrink dramatically.
Yeah, AI is breaking Wright's Law because the learning cycle is no longer physical but computational. Distribution models can test, fail, and improve millions of times faster than any team of human engineers. Experience can be generated in advance at scale at a negligible cost. The result is even more powerful when AI combines with robotic, sensors, geospatial intelligence, and cloud computing. These technologies multiply one another. Every scan container, every yard entry, and every truck movement becomes a signal that AI systems use to process and price computation. Accuracy rises, innovation compounds. Now, here's the secret sauce. The missing ingredient is wisdom. Data without context is noise. The future belongs to systems that combine raw computational power with judgment, pattern recognition, and domain experience or expertise. Think of these as AI savants, specialized systems that already exist and are evolving rapidly. Unlike general consumer AI tools, they blend technical capabilities with deep industry insights.
When AI savants are infused with the experience of seasoned professionals, innovation cycles collapse even further. They don't simply iterate faster, they skip steps, they test smarter, they pivot instantly. Discovery accelerates at light speed. The implications for logistics are extraordinary. Supply chains may stop behaving like managed systems and start functioning more like adaptive organisms. AI agents will negotiate, reroute, and optimize flow of goods in real time. Traditional ownership models, fleets, warehouses, and even labor could be replaced by dynamic orchestration of perfectly used assets. Winners won't be the companies that move the most freight. Winners will be those that control the richest data streams, that build and deploy AI savants, and that embrace the new reality rather than clinging to outdated assumptions about scale.
This transformation is thrilling and unsettling at the same time. Entire categories of jobs may disappear far more quickly than in past cycles of creative destruction. Nations and corporations that dominate AI may end up controlling not only knowledge, but the framework of global trade. New products and services will rise and fall with greater frequency, and companies that can adapt quickly will expand their workforces to satisfy demand. For all of its dangers, this elimination of entire categories of jobs may produce a huge amount of entrepreneurial activity.
This new golden age of logistics entrepreneurship will unveil solutions to problems that we may not even know exist. Wright's law still matters, but AI has broken it. Knowledge can materialize instantly. Innovation and disruption will arrive in shockwaves, not cycles. The challenge will be not building the tools, but surviving the pace of their consequences. Leaders who adapt to this new world will shape the future of commerce. Those who don't will be replaced.
Yep. All right, let's shift over to home sales. Home sales in September rose, boosted by falling mortgage rates. Home sales in September rose to a 7-month high after buyers took advantage of declining mortgage rates, offering hope that the housing market could be improving. Sales of existing homes rose 1.5% from the prior month to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 4.06 million. That's the highest level since February, according to the National Association of Realtors, and in line with economists' forecast. Lower borrowing costs boosted activity in September, which reflected contracts signed earlier in the summer when mortgage rates began to ease. The 30-year mortgage rate has gradually fallen after nearing 7% at the start of the year, and some buyers can't wait any longer to act.
Still, many home buyers see the market as too expensive. With the Federal Reserve expected to continue cutting short-term rates, these buyers are waiting for mortgage rates to come down further. The typical monthly mortgage payment for a home buyer in the 4 weeks ending October 12th was $2,564, down about $300 from May, but still up from a year earlier. Buyers have confidence that the rates will continue to come down, which in turn is creating some degree of confidence that the housing market is making a recovery. Market analysts say that they think the average 30-year mortgage rate needs to drop below 6% or even below 5.5% to spur more activity. The average was 6.27% last week, according to Freddie Mac.
But even lower rates may not be enough to jolt the sluggish housing market. A weaker labor market could weigh on demand, and buyers are unlikely to make a big purchase if they are nervous about their job security. The government shutdown that started this month could also slow home purchase activity, especially for buyers who need flood insurance.
You know, I wonder how the lenders are going to look at someone who got behind on bills during this shutdown. You know, someone that didn't have ample savings, emergency savings, and that could also weigh on this.
Absolutely.
I mean, they could get ugly.
Home buyers are contending with a market that has been frozen for 3 straight years. A sharp increase in mortgage rates in 2022 snuffed out what had been a housing boom. Elevated mortgage rates and home prices near record highs have depressed activity for most of the year. The market is on pace for about 4 million homes sold this year, down from more than 6 million in 2021.
And home prices continue to climb because the overall supply of home sales is still below historically normal levels. The national median existing home prices in September rose to $415,200, a 2.1% increase from a year earlier. Inventory remains relatively tight in part because many homeowners with current mortgage rates near 3% are reluctant to move and take on a more expensive loan. Nationally, there were 1.5 million homes for sale under contract at the end of September, up 1.3% from August and 14% from September 2024. The South and West are the most buyer-friendly areas right now. The inventory of homes for sale in those regions has climbed above the typical pre-pandemic levels, according to Realtor.com, giving buyers more to choose from and more leverage to negotiate. On a year-over-year basis, September home sales rose more than 4.1%. I wonder when we're going to stop using the term pre-pandemic levels and referencing it to that.
Right.
So I'm ready for that.
We had a joke in my house for a while that BC normally means before Christ, but now it means before COVID.
Before COVID, right.
Because the whole world is revolved around
funny.
COVID,
Right. Yeah.
And what was this before COVID or was this after,
Yeah.
And all these articles, all this news is like, hey, before COVID it was this, and now, So you're right, it's funny. I wonder if 15 years from now we'll still be saying, in the
BC.
pre-pandemic, BC, exactly.
What credit card trends are telling us about the U.S. consumer? Americans may feel worse about the economy, but they're still wielding their credit cards with confidence. An escalating trade war, a prolonged government shutdown, and a stagnant job market have economists and analysts fearing that consumer spending, a central driver of the U.S. economy, might slow down. That concern has shifted to lower-income households, where they have been more recent signs of stress.
But in recent earning reports from major credit card issuers show that spending growth remains robust. Delinquencies are easing, and some banks are starting to lend more freely. Cardholders were carrying higher balances, but the banks still expressed confidence about the overall health of consumers for now. Capital One's chief executive, Richard Fairbanks, says the U.S. consumer and the overall macroeconomy has been quite resilient so far in 2025. And he does believe that we are in a period of economic uncertainty. Spending on credit cards across 6 of the country's largest issuers rose 7.5% in the third quarter compared with a year ago, and that continues to outpace inflation. And reports show that consumer sentiment has been relatively downbeat, and yet they continue just to keep on spending.
Most of the new spending is coming from borrowers with strong credit scores, according to an analysis of large banks by the Federal Reserve. Excluding that group, which accounts for about 2/3 of credit card accounts at major banks, average purchase volume declined after adjusting for inflation. The decline in real spending among consumers with weaker scores could reflect a greater reluctance to spend due to weaker household finances, according to a special advisor at the Fed.
One reason big banks are reporting strong spending is that many have thrown resources into premium cards that target affluent consumers. We talked about this, I think, just last week. Customers with high annual fee cards spend nearly 3 times as much as those with lower fee cards, according to market research from J.D. Power. They're also willing to fork over high fees and are less likely to miss payments. Top issuers, including American Express, J.P. Morgan, Capital One, and Citigroup, have trotted out new cards or enhanced perks this year, in many cases with higher fees. In the few weeks since American Express revamped its Platinum card, the pace of account openings has doubled, the company said. The card now has an annual fee of $895, up from $695 the year before. Overall, American Express has said its average fee per card is $119 in the third quarter, up 35% from the start of 2023.
Yep. Some banks have been opening up credit cards at a quicker rate after a slowdown earlier this year. The number of new accounts at the big four lenders collectively rose 4.5% in the third quarter compared with a year earlier, though others continue to pull back. Wells Fargo, newly freed from the Federal Reserve asset cap that had long limited its growth, led the pack with 299,000 new accounts in the most recent quarter, up from just 31,000 a year earlier. American Express and the Bank of America, by contrast, opened fewer accounts compared with last year.
Synchrony Financial, a major influence issuer of a range of customers, said that the rate of net charge-offs, the credit card balances lenders no longer expect to collect on, has fallen to near pre-pandemic levels.
There it is
There
again.
again.
There it
Yep.
is.
Pre-pandemic.
After tightening the lending standards last year, the company said last week it is now loosening them again as fewer borrowers have fallen behind than expected. Delinquency rates, or the proportion of borrowers who were late on payments, are typically a leading sign of stress among consumers. Lower delinquencies across the industry have given more issuers the confidence to lend more. JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo reported drops in delinquency rates in the third quarter from a year ago. Rates of charge-offs were also down.
Thought that was an interesting article, and I wonder how much of the top-heavy people that we talked about last week and in this article carry the load for everybody. The ones where a $900 annual credit card fee is nothing to them, so they keep paying it. And so I wonder how much of these statistics are skewed by people where the big spenders and the ones who are never late on their bills, et cetera. So interesting data.
And we have such an aging population, and it's like Steve and Nancy Rosenberg are a great example. They use their credit cards everywhere, and then they use the points to go on cruises.
Right.
And so they didn't care what the fee was,
right,
because they got free trips. So
and obviously the fee is a non-issue to them, and paying the monthly balance off is a non-issue to them. So
yeah, but we use our credit cards to buy everything, and we pay it off. But we hate paying for a large annual fee, so we choose one that doesn't have
lower fees.
But we just don't look at all the perks, maybe.
Right.
So we just look for miles and hotel points.
Right.
So.
Yep, it's a deal.
Uncle Sam is taking stakes in companies. This new activism is here to stay. Uncle Sam is becoming America's most powerful investor, taking big stakes in companies to bolster supply chains and make money for taxpayers. Both goals have bipartisan support, which suggests this new shareholder activism will far outlast President Donald Trump's administration. Under this unfolding form of American capitalism, the U.S. is pushing the boundaries of its legal authority to invest billions of dollars in a growing number of companies in return for stock. A third driving force is to beat China, whose control over some materials and manufacturing processes has exposed critical national security weaknesses for the U.S. amid trade tensions. Under Trump, the government has taken stakes in chip maker Intel and critical minerals firms such as MP Materials and Lithium Americas. Lawyers say some company boards are clamoring to take on the government as a shareholder, while others are wary that they may be forced to give up equity or some sort of control in exchange for permits or other approvals. Some managers believe U.S. investment has given their firms a leg up, although free market advocates warn that there's a litany of examples where government heavy-handedness has had poor consequences for the economy. While some Democrats criticize the moves as lacking strategy, the taking of equity stakes in some cases has bipartisan support.
Trump officials say that they're just getting started. Pardon me. Trump officials say they're just getting started. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said the White House is homing in on industries critical to U.S. national security. The idea is to avoid over-reliance on China, which government officials say has manipulated prices to undercut U.S. industries and give itself a strategic advantage. Just as often, the White House targets seem to be one of opportunity. The U.S. took its stake in Intel days after Trump called for the ouster of its CEO, with Trump arguing that he was rectifying an unfair deal for taxpayers made by President Joe Biden's administration. In November of 2024, the Biden administration announced that Intel would receive nearly $8 billion in grants to support the company's $100 billion investment in building semiconductor projects in the United States, but the U.S. didn't receive any equity as part of the deal. In addition to the national security goals, the White House and cabinet officials say they want to make money for taxpayers. Why are we giving companies worth $100 billion this kind of money? What's in it for the American taxpayer? And the answer Donald Trump has is that we should get an equity stake for our money.
The Defense Department invested $400 million in July in MP Materials, which operates a rare earth mine in California. The preferred stock and warrant for common stock give the government a 15% stake in the company, making the U.S. its largest shareholder. As part of the deal, the government also guaranteed a minimum price for some of its rare earth products and said the Pentagon would find customers for 100% of the magnets produced at a new facility for a decade after its completion. This month, the government struck 2 more critical minerals deals, taking 5% stakes in Vancouver-based Lithium Americas and in one of its joint ventures, and a 10% stake in Vancouver-based Trilogy Metals, with warrants to acquire another 7.5% of the company. In addition to the money, the U.S. approved a 211-mile road for a mineral project in Alaska, reversing a decision made by former President Joe Biden, which was foul, totally a foul. Despite talk early in the administration of creating a sovereign wealth fund, the White House says it isn't seeking to build a large portfolio of U.S. companies. It sees equity stakes as just part of its toolkit to firm up the U.S. supply chain. The point with equity stakes is that the president is making sure the taxpayer isn't needlessly giving out money with no strings attached, said a White House official who called any financial returns to taxpayers an ancillary benefit to national security interests.
Critics note that taking stock in a company doesn't necessarily do much to firm up supply chains. The U.S.'s original deal with Intel provided the company with grants, loans, and tax incentives in exchange for the company meeting certain milestones to build the semiconductor project in the U.S., an endeavor that Intel and other chip manufacturers said wasn't otherwise economically viable. As part of the deal to convert the grants and loans into equity, the Trump administration has removed some of the milestones. The milestones had to be removed because Intel was falling a little bit short on their timeline. In order to keep the project funded, they removed the milestones or they renegotiated the timelines so that they could keep the same plan but just get money quicker to give the boost that it needed. And this was all done in exchange for about roughly 10% equity in the company.
Some deals have given the U.S. influence over corporate actions, but without any stock. In August, NVIDIA and AMD agreed to give the U.S. 15% of their revenue from AI chips sales to China in exchange for export licenses. Later in the month, the White House said the deal hadn't been finalized, and China banned the chip sales in any case. The rare earths deal have kicked off a gold rush among companies looking to see if they can get Uncle Sam as an investor. 20 to 30 companies in industries ranging from critical minerals to manufacturing and robotics have reached out to him to see if he could help line up a U.S. investment, which he has whittled down to a handful for pitches to government agencies. Although the investment discussions are often to further national security interests, government officials are also looking for a positive investment return. Everyone is working across the table from each other to make money, says Scharf.
The government hasn't released a comprehensive accounting of what it has made from the investments, but anecdotally, the return so far are robust. TechMets Mental says the government has made about 30% annually on its investments in the private company. MP Materials recently traded at about $83, more than double the conversion and the exercise price that the company gave the government in its funding deal. In exchange for deferring $184 million in debt payments, the government received 5% of Lithium America, a stake worth $93 million, and perhaps the most lucrative investment. The government in August agreed to buy 9.9% of Intel at $20.47 per share, a discount to the market price. The stock recently traded at around $38. Trump officials have pointed out Trump officials have pointed to several industries they view as critical to national security interests that could end up getting U.S. investments. Bessent said that the U.S. has identified 7 critical industries where equity stakes might be on the table, but he didn't name them.
In many cases, the government is giving support to industries that traditionally have found it too risky or expensive to operate in the U.S. Setting up a rare earths mine is risky, even before taking into account the mineral's highly volatile prices. Steel companies for years have said that they can't compete with China's state-sponsored companies, which sell some forms of steel at prices that would cause the U.S. firms to lose money. Though taking equity stakes outside of crises is unusual, legal experts say there's nothing inherently illegal about it. What comes after the U.S. builds its portfolio is mostly unknown. With Intel, the White House agreed not to take governance rights, but it has also put its thumb on the scale in other arrangements. Trump exercised his U.S. steel veto power for the first time last month, blocking a decision to stop processing raw steel at a plant in Illinois. A White House official in September told Barron's that stopping processing was perhaps a sensible business decision, but against U.S. interests. A U.S. Steel spokeswoman says there would have been no layoffs in any case, and called the Trump administration a great friend to the American steel industry.
All right, real quick, GM aims to deliver eyes-off autonomous driving by 2028. The company said it has already mapped 600,000 miles of hands-free roads in North America, and that customers have driven 700 million miles using its hands-off driver assistance system, Super Cruise, without a single reported crash attributed to the system. The Detroit automaker also said its vehicles would feature conversational artificial intelligence from Alphabet or Google starting next year. GM plans to eventually introduce its own AI that would be custom-built for customers' vehicles and fine-tuned for personal preferences. This could include explaining one-pedal driving in your new vehicle, spotting a maintenance issue early, or finding the perfect place for dinner en route to your destination, according to GM.
That's pretty cool. And we're out of time. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Excellent.
Thanks for listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning and advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for a financial advisor, please contact our office at 478-922-8100 to set up a free consultation. You can learn more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. If you have a question or topic you'd like for us to address in a future broadcast, email Randy at rfmoney.com. We look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.